Hello and welcome. Another edition of Thursday's Coaches Corner. Every Thursday, take a few minutes to chat a little bit about college baseball with college coaches, all levels, all divisions. And today we're going to talk a little Big Ten, University of Minnesota baseball with head baseball coach Ty McDevitt. Ty, thank you so much. I know this busy time of year, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to join me today.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. You know, when we talk Minnesota baseball, we talk, Coach Anderson, I believe, was there for over 40 years. It's a position of historic. Coaches have been there for 30 and 40 years, and now I know you've been there for about 8 years as a pitching coach, former player at University of Minnesota, and now the head coach. Talk a little bit about what that's like to follow up, A, Coach Anderson, and B, kind of coach your alma mater.
Well, I think, there's a lot there. Number one, being able to follow John is an honor. Just having the ability to play for him, to coach with him, all the knowledge, the stories, the wisdom that guy has is second to none. So to take over a historic program with an alumni base that is as involved and as stable as our alumni base, it truly is an honor. And it's cool taking over a program that you played for, because you can say, hey, I'm the head baseball coach and I represent everybody that's played in this program, but I truly have. I've played alongside of a lot of the people that we're representing day to day with the Minnesota across the front of our jersey, and that's pretty special. So John was a very, very, very adamant about the program never being about one person. It was about a collection, generations of people who helped build this thing into what it is. And it's my job here in the next chapter to just keep stewarding this thing forward.
A lot of people maybe prior to this season or last season may have thought of Big Ten. They think football, they think hockey a little bit. But, in years past, you've had famous alums like Coach Jerry Kindle, obviously Hall of Famers Paul Molitor, Dave Winfield. In fact, I vividly remember seeing pictures of Dave Winfield in Omaha when I was there in 2014. Would like to talk to you a little bit about the transition, adding these former Pac-10, Pac-12 schools into the mix at the Big Ten. And now baseball season for you is East, West, everything in between. I mean, there's a lot of travel, but you're really bringing a different brand of baseball into the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. Obviously, the travel's one piece of it, but we're bringing high-quality West Coast baseball into the league. And anybody that has been around the college game, they know that West Coast baseball is just different, in a variety of ways, with the way that they can skill out there and the polish, I call it, that they have on them. It brings a whole nother dimension to the league. I think historically the Big Ten has been a little bit more, power baseball, and that might be a really, sort of simplistic way to say it, but power arms, power bats, really good at the top of the order, really good at the top of the staff, and then maybe not as depthy, maybe not as skill oriented. And again, I'm talking generally here. And then you bring teams in the league like USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, that they can do it all. They can hit the ball out of the ballpark. They can skill on you. They've got arms and arms and arms for days. And they've got histories. Like, you look at Coach Savage and what he's done with his program and the history of UCLA baseball. And don't even get me started on USC, right? I mean, you talk about one of the most historic programs that's out there. So you're not just bringing good baseball, good current baseball into the league, but you're bringing history, you're bringing a new level of play, you're bringing travel. And I think you can take that one of two ways. You can look at that as a coach or as a player and say, wow, this is scary, this is daunting, we got to pull away from it, or you dive right into it and accept it and get excited about being able to go play against the best players in the country, the best coaches in the country, at the best venues in the country. And that's the tone that we've chosen to take on it.
One look at your roster, and I was happy to find somebody from Massachusetts kind of in my backyard, Austin Prep. When you're recruiting in today's world, and I don't want to bog us down with portal talk, but with regard to baseball recruiting as a whole, is it now with the use of technology, are you now relying on people that you played with, played against, as far as, hey, there's some guys that I think would be a good fit for your program? How do you generally, as a staff, begin your recruiting process each summer with regard to building your program?
Well, the recruiting topic's a tough one because I feel like, our mission, our vision, our process, like, it changes constantly with the way the rules change, with the way the portal changes, with the way rosters change. Like, so, it's funny. A new ruling comes out about junior college, and we meet as a staff, and they kind of look to me and say, "Okay, what direction are we going to go in? Are we going to go more high school here? Are we going to go more, transfer portal there?" And then a lot of that is dictated by your resources. So, if you have a lot of NIL money, if you have more than 11-7 scholarships, if you have, different types of institutional or supplemental aid, you can do more. If not, then you have to change your strategy. You have to find guys that you can get younger and develop them and be able to supplement maybe in a different category of the portal. So, when you talk about, like, hey, what's your recruiting philosophy? It changes. And I tell recruits that all the time. I think the only thing that I can promise them in the recruiting process is honesty, transparency. Other than that, your guess is as good as mine on what tomorrow is going to look like in today's game. So, find a coach, find a program that's going to be honest with you, that's going to talk to you, that's going to, make sure that you're staying up to date with how things are going to, shake and jive, because they're going to. And I think that's the most you can do. And so when it comes to evaluating who's going to be part of our program, who would be a good fit, whether it's out of the portal or whether it's out of the high school or junior college, it all comes down to evaluating our current team, what we need for that year, what holes we need to plug, having our eyes on the draft, what we may lose, because a lot of times you're making these decisions before the late draft now. And then you're really taking a long list, shortening it up day by day, whether it's via a visit or a guy decides to go elsewhere or a guy decides to commit, and that list just starts to get shorter and shorter till eventually you get a ball club of guys that want to be here. And we rely a lot on our coast to coast contacts to be able to vet players, because that's more important now than ever. Everybody wants something, and that's okay. That's part of the game. But are they a good fit? Are they a good fit? And a lot of times the recruiting process isn't long enough for us to really be able to develop a deep enough relationship to be able to wholeheartedly check that box. So we've got to rely on reliable contacts, East Coast, West Coast. We've got, Connor Gandasi, who's our recruiting coordinator. He's a, Connecticut guy. He's an East Coast guy, so he's got connections all throughout the East Coast. He's been a recruiting coordinator for a long time. Sean Moore, who helps with our hitting and defense. He was at Penn State for a long time, so he's got the East Coast covered. We've got West Coast contacts, South contacts, and obviously we know our area of the Midwest very well, every one of us. So,
that's one of the things that I think parents have a misunderstanding. Everything is placed at the feet of the college coaches. They over recruit, they do this, they do that. But what most families and student athletes fail to recognize is it's constantly a rug pull. You think you're going this way, there's a rule change and it goes that way. You're trying to keep up, you're trying to stay ahead of the curve, but it's constantly changing, evolving. The draft, the date of the draft, things like that. They do affect college recruiting, and I think more parents need to understand that dynamic. One of the things that I have been very excited to be able to speak with you about, because it's a very, very hot topic, and that is college coaches do not recruit unless you're throwing an elite fastball. And I know that you, were a pitcher in college at University of Minnesota. You were a pitching coach. I would love for you to discuss the development of a young pitcher, particularly the need to avoid chasing velocity between the ages of 13 through, say, 16, and learning how to pitch off of the big boy mound and developing the craft of pitching and allowing velocity to come as there's physical maturation. Can you just discuss that point for parents or student athletes that are pitchers?
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I think any parent, any player, any high school kid, any college kid that thinks that velocity is the end all be all, like, I encourage them to come and sit with us during our process the day the transfer portal opens up in the summer. We ain't looking for who's got the highest velo, even what's the highest vert that we can find on a guy. The first thing we sort for, innings, experience, right? Who's gotten the most outs, as fast as they possibly can. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this guy's got 100 innings that he pitched this year. I don't care what level even. Like if he threw 100 innings and he's got good strike to walk ratio, like let's go. Well, I'm in on him. We can figure the rest of the stuff out later. So, part of that might be my confidence in our development here and being able to develop velocity and secondary stuff and all of that. But we need pitchers, man. I mean, the portal, junior colleges all across the country are littered with guys who throw a gazillion miles an hour, but, couldn't hit a barn. It's just, it's unbelievable, right? So, and I've had them on my staffs. I've developed staffs with them. We've had loud stuff that we can't throw over the plate, and it makes for a miserable baseball game. I can tell you that much. So, I think the more and more that the portal has come into play here, you're seeing the emphasis that's put on guys who can throw the ball over the dish, guys who can compete, guys who can do the little things on the mound, like control the running game, field their position. Simple stuff like that is of higher value now than it's ever been. So, like I said, I mean, look how many there's enough guys that go into the portal every year, and when the music stops, there ain't enough chairs for all of them. There's a lot of guys who throw 99 in that mix. You'd be super surprised how many guys throw 99 that don't even get a chair when the music stops.
Well, I think it would be great if, and I want to ask this from the perspective of the high school age, freshman through senior year in high school. When you're developing pitching, I mean, do you at the University of Minnesota, is there a time where the ball gets put down? I mean, where is the emphasis with regard to the strength, conditioning of the body, of the mind, and the development of the craft of sequencing and tunneling pitches? I think a lot of parents feel, let me take 2 lessons a week. Let me go to these showcases in, November through February. And we're doing a lot of pitching, but are we really perfecting the craft of pitching? And so my question is, at the collegiate level, what are some of your points of emphasis in the fall for development of younger pitchers when they have to get in, when it's hot during the spring against, like a USC or a UCLA?
Well, there's a lot there, right? So I think first thing you had asked about, like the shutdown period. What do we look for at that? We still encourage all of our recruits. We still encourage all of our players to play multiple sports in high school. And I think naturally, even if you continue a throwing progression, play multiple sports. I think that's the best thing that you can do for your ball game is competing in a variety of different forums, and not getting stuck doing the same repetitive thing over and over and over again. Because let's be honest, a lot of people they don't have the attention span for that. It turns into squirrel chasing pretty fast. And so we like our guys to continue to play whatever sports they were playing. We don't encourage anybody to stop playing football, stop playing hockey, stop playing hoops, play them all. In fact, we've encouraged guys to pick up sports. We've had a handful of guys who play 2 sports, and then they're like, hey, my high school coach is on my ass about being a tight end or whatever. And we're like, go do it. Go play football. That's only going to help you down the road in terms of being able to open you up to different experiences. So that's number one. And then number 2, you talked about, what are our points of emphasis in the fall, getting these guys prepared to pitch in, a big time college environment. And first and foremost, you have to have mechanics that work. Like I think if the engine and the body don't match, then something's going to go awry. And what I mean by that is, Eric Cressy had an old saying about shooting a cannon out of a canoe. And sometimes that's what you have is you get an engine that's overbuilt with a body of a car that just isn't willing to sustain that. And so you see that with some young guys. They're typically the guys who have lightning fast arms, who get down the slope in a hurry, but no front leg block, no leverage at release point. Everything kind of crumbles through ball release. And you either get injury or you get inconsistency with strikes. So you have kind of that category. Well, those guys need to get stronger, and we need to be able to build up the body of the car to be able to handle the engine that they have. And then you have a whole another group of guys who have, pretty sound mechanics, but the engine's just not, what it needs to be. And I'm not a car guy, but, it's a V6 versus a V8, right? Like we need to turn the dial up a little bit and get that thing moving faster. So We put those guys in a little bit of a different category. Those are more of the guys that, maybe we'll focus more on plyometrics that'll be a little bit more explosive oriented and try to build up their capacity for that fast twitch, so that we can take their good movement patterns and just make them more explosive and faster down the slope.
So I think I really want to find out, if I can, from your perspective, when you're looking at high school athletes, particularly not the portal guys or the JUCO guys, the high school athletes, what over and above skill are you evaluating? Parents have a tough time understanding that the margin of skill is negligible when you get to college. It's a matter of mental preparation. It's a matter of how to handle stress of going 0 for 8 over Friday and Saturday and rebounding on Sunday. What type of skill sets are you looking at, whether they're physical or mental, that allow you to say, yeah, this is a guy, I'm not so worried that he's 0 for 4. This is a guy I think that can help us. When you're evaluating high school guys, over and above skill set, what type of attributes do you look for?
I mean, I distill it to 3 words: compete tool, which again is challenging to evaluate at times. So sometimes you need help from whether it's travel coaches or high school coaches or guys who are training with them. But you need help with that one, and sometimes it's loud. Sometimes you see it right away on the field. You can see the compete tool loud and clear. But you get quiet competitors and louder competitors, and so there's different types of compete tools. But just having the compete tool, wanting the baseball in the big moment, wanting to get the big hit, not shying away from that. So that's number 1. Number 2, athleticism. And again, like we talked about with the pitchers, especially in our sport, athleticism is different. It shows up differently in a lot of ways. Some guys are a little bit more fast twitch. Some guys are a little bit more slow twitch. There's different body types, so on and so forth. But you have to have a general athleticism, which gives you flexibility, maneuverability, utility when it comes to playing different positions, which with 34 guys on a roster has never been more valuable. If you can play multiple positions, you're going to have a spot on a roster. And then number 3, you got to look at just the motor. We're always talking about that as a coaching staff. Does the kid have a motor? Is he going to show up to the ballpark with a passion, a burning desire to get better, to make his teammates better, to make an impact on this team? Or are we going to have to take a cattle prod to his behind to get him going? And we say that all the time. Like, we will coach energy and effort for the first week in the fall just so that we can set the pace. And after that, if we're coaching energy, we got big problems.
I'm going to ask this last question because I really wanted to ask at the beginning. Do camps matter to you or your staff? Have they kind of upped the ante with regard to, you want to see guys that want to come to your camps, want to get on your campus, want to kind of see and meet and greet with you? Are camps now a more integral part of recruiting for University of Minnesota?
Yeah, they are for us. I can't speak for anybody else, but they definitely are for us just because of the way the recruiting rules have changed. Being able to get kids on campus at a younger age, and even if there's not necessarily an offer or a promise of a scholarship offer or something like that eventually comes from that camp, the exposure to the institution, the exposure to the coaches, the exposure to the environment, whether it's at the field or the indoor facility that we're going to be practicing and playing in, I think it's important to get them exposed to that. And again, I mean, I don't know how many times it's happened where, you get a kid that maybe came to a camp as a 16-year-old. He wasn't quite ready, but we were able to gather some data on him, have some good conversations with him, give him some coaching points. And maybe his second year at junior college, all of a sudden the kid explodes, right? He hits his late, which happens with a lot of Midwest kids. He hits a late growth spurt. All of a sudden he skyrockets, and rather than having to get him back on campus and go through an exhaustive recruiting process, the kid's like, no, I've been to Minnesota. I've interacted with their coaches. I've seen their facilities. Like, this is the place that I want to be. It can streamline that process. But sometimes that payoff for the coach and for the player doesn't come for 3-4 years in advance. So I think you're going to see more and more of that, where I just encourage all the high school kids to be patient. There's a few things that are never going to go out of style. Number 1, getting better. Number 2, having a big motor. And number 3, continuing to work hard to develop your craft, whatever that is, whether it's hitting the baseball, whether it's throwing the baseball, whether it's playing in the field. and eventually things will sort themselves out.
Well, I want to encourage parents and student athletes, anything and everything to do with the University of Minnesota baseball, whether it be camps, schedule for games. Encourage you if you live in that area, or if Minnesota is coming to your neck of the woods, whether it be at USC or UCLA or Rutgers or Penn State, take in a ball game, give them the opportunity, be able to see how the coaching staff interacts with athletes and so forth. Find all of that information in the newly revised and upgraded Baseball Blue Book app. Ty, thank you so much. Best of luck. I know it's the season. I know it's very, very busy. Truly appreciate you taking a few minutes to join me today.
Coach, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.